That illusion shattered the night Nadia poured 2 glasses of wine and whispered, "I think we should try something new." The candlelight flickered between us, softening the sharpness in her smile, but I saw it, calculated. She always had that look when she was cornering me into something I'd later regret. That night, in the corner was a woman named Elise. A friend of hers, she claimed. Open-minded, she assured. A little flirtation, she said, could reignite our spark. I was already fading then, if I'm being honest. Somewhere between her emotional distance and our cold bed, I'd started walking through life like a ghost in my own story. But when Nadia leaned forward, brushed her lips against my ear and said, "I want you to sleep with her. For us," I felt something shift. Not desire, not rebellion, something more subtle, detachment. Like a rope I hadn't noticed around my chest was quietly loosening. I should have refused. I should have asked her what the hell she was doing, why our intimacy now required spectators or substitutes. But instead, I studied her eyes, looking for a flicker of jealousy. A test, maybe, or a trap. But there was nothing, just that cold, composed confidence she always wore when she thought she was in control. She even smiled when I agreed. "You're more open-minded than I thought," she said, sipping her wine. But I wasn't being open. I was being numb. The night with Elise wasn't the wild, lustful experience Nadia seemed to expect. Elise was gentle, oddly aware of my hesitations. There was no game in her eyes, no power play, just curiosity, kindness, even shame, as if she too realized we were both being used. I left her apartment quietly before dawn, didn't kiss her goodbye. But something unexpected happened the next morning. Nadia was cold, not distant, furious. She slammed cabinets, avoiding eye contact. She barely muttered when I asked what was wrong. "Nothing," she snapped, but I'd known her long enough to recognize the storm beneath. She wanted me to fail the test. She wanted me to say no. She wanted to hold it over me. My loyalty, my refusal to stray. She didn't expect me to follow through, and now that I had, the power shifted. I saw it then. Our relationship wasn't built on love. It was a war disguised as passion, one where she always played offense, until now. I had crossed a line, one she'd drawn not in trust, but in arrogance. And the second I stepped over it, I saw the real Nadia, the one who couldn't stand losing control. And for the first time in years, I felt something again. Not guilt, no regret, something closer to revenge. By the end of that week, Nadia had transformed from indifferent ice queen to tightly wound storm cloud. She denied it, of course, clinging to her classic line, "If something's wrong, you'd know." But I knew. The way she scrutinized me brushing my teeth, the silence when my phone buzzed and I picked it up, the way she asked, "Have you talked to Elise again?" with mock casualness, then stiffened when I said, "Why? Would it matter?" That was when the game truly began. Nadia started staying late at work, not once or twice, but every night. Always some client dinner or urgent strategy meeting. But I wasn't an idiot. I didn't ask questions because I already knew the answers, and asking would make it look like I cared. I didn't. Not anymore. What I cared about was watching her unravel. And she was, slowly, beautifully unraveling. She began stalking Elise's Instagram, liking and unliking old posts. She even followed her from a burner account. Elise sent me a screenshot. "Is this her?" "She's watching me." I should have warned Elise, told her to block and move on. But I didn't, because something darker had settled into me, a hunger I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about Elise. It wasn't about sex. It was about power. Nadia had played the puppeteer for 3 years of my life, gaslighting me, eroding my confidence, twisting intimacy into strategy. She'd cut me down with sarcasm, made me question every instinct, and always, always made sure I came crawling back, apologizing for a storm she'd created. But now she was losing, and I wanted to watch her drown in it. The next weekend, I invited Elise to coffee. Public, safe. I owed her a conversation, closure. But she surprised me. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't confused. She's using you, Elise said bluntly. She probably always has. I nodded. She sent me to you like I was a pawn, and now she's jealous. Elise leaned forward. Then don't let her win. Don't go back to being her toy. That was the moment I realized Elise wasn't a footnote in Nadia's twisted little plan. She was a mirror, the first person in a long time who saw the real cost of what I'd endured. And that made Nadia spiral even faster. She started dropping passive-aggressive grenades into conversation. Maybe you should invite Elise to dinner. See how we all get along. Or, you seem happier now. Guess you just needed someone else to scratch your itch. It wasn't just words, it was the way she held my stare just a second too long when I got out of the shower. The sudden, intense need to reconnect physically, only after she found Elise's name on my call log. Nadia didn't want me back. She just didn't want to lose. One night she finally snapped. You enjoyed it, didn't you? She hissed. You liked being with her. I paused mid-step, toothbrush in hand. You told me to. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she screamed. I thought you loved me. That's the point, isn't it? I said. You thought I'd say no, that I'd be your proof I still cared, that you had me wrapped. She threw my mug at the wall. It shattered just above my shoulder. Silence. And then, you've changed, she said, breath ragged. You're colder now. I laughed, not bitterly, just truthfully. No, Nadia, I just stopped pretending I didn't see who you really are. She stormed out. I didn't follow. 3 days later, she posted a photo with a guy, some ex she used to swear she hated. Caption, healing looks good on me. A jab, a desperate attempt to cut back. But I was already bleeding clean. At work, I started sleeping better, laughing more. Elise and I talked occasionally, no strings. But more than that, I had peace, the kind that comes after surviving a quiet war. But Nadia wasn't done. One night, Elise called. Her voice shook. She showed up at my place. What? I stood so fast my chair tipped. Are you okay? She didn't do anything, just stood outside staring. Then I walked away. That night I changed the locks on my apartment, just in case, because Nadia wasn't just spiraling, she was cracking. And when people like her crack, they don't shatter. They sharpen. They plot. And something told me the real storm hadn't even started. You don't realize how deep someone's hooks go until you try to take them out. Even after Nadia left, her grip lingered. Phantom pressure on my chest when my phone vibrated. Shadows in corners where suspicion used to live. But I was getting stronger, more lucid. It was like walking out of a fog that I didn't know had clouded every decision I made for 3 years. And that's when she tried to drag me back under. It started with a letter, not a text, not an email, a handwritten letter on thick, floral-scented stationery. She left it taped to my door. I'm sorry, I miss us. I was wrong. I just wanted to feel wanted again. You didn't see me anymore, and I panicked. Come talk to me. I'll make this right. I read it twice, once with curiosity, the second time with clinical detachment. It was textbook Nadia, soft tones laced with subtle manipulation, apologies without accountability, a demand disguised as vulnerability. I didn't respond, so she escalated. First, she posted a video on social media, not of us, but of a montage. Our dog, old vacations, slow piano music playing under muted clips of us laughing. Caption, some loves never die. It racked up views. Sympathy poured in. Girl, get him back. You scored a couple goals. Men don't appreciate a good woman anymore. The comments made me nauseous, not because people didn't understand, but because for so long, I'd helped build that illusion, smiling through her digs at parties, laughing when she humiliated me in front of friends, pretending everything was perfect because I was too scared to start over. But Elise didn't buy it. You okay? She messaged after seeing the video. Yeah, she's just spiraling. She's trying to rewrite the story, Elise replied. Don't let her. I didn't plan to, but I was beginning to wonder if the story even belonged to me anymore. Because then she went for the kill. A rumor started at my office. Harmless at first, whispers that I'd cheated, that Elise was my side piece while I was still committed to Nadia, that I was emotionally abusive. It spread like oil on water. My boss pulled me aside. HR sent a standard wellness check email. Friends grew cold, and I knew. Nadia had planted it. She'd always kept receipts, screenshots, messages, saved voicemails taken out of context. I remembered how she once said, "You never know when you'll need evidence." She said it jokingly, wine glass in hand, but her eyes were dead serious. She was trying to destroy me, and I almost let her. The old version of me, the one who bent over backward to appease her, started clawing its way back. I drafted apologies I never sent, imagined compromises. For a moment, I even wondered if I deserved this. But then Elise did something I'll never forget. She showed up at my office, stormed past reception, slapped her phone down on my desk. On screen, a recording. Nadia, screaming into Elise's voicemail. "He was mine. You were a distraction. You were supposed to make him crawl back, not give him the illusion he had options." Her voice cracked halfway through. Rage gives way to despair. "He's not strong. He's just pretending. And when the world sees the truth, he'll come back to me like always." I stared at the screen, not blinking. "This," Elise said quietly, "is who she really is." And for the first time, I saw it with clarity. Nadia hadn't lost me. She'd lost her favorite puppet, her emotional hostage. And that meant she was going to keep coming until I made her stop. So I stopped hiding. I told HR the truth. I submitted the voicemail as evidence. I filed a harassment complaint. I unfollowed, blocked, and reported. And then I made a choice I didn't expect. I asked Elise to dinner, not as revenge, not as a power move, but because she had stood in the fire with me when she could have walked away. She didn't want to win me. She just wanted me to wake up. Over sushi and sake, she asked, "Do you think she ever really loved you?" I took a long breath. "I think she loved the version of me that didn't know how to say no." "And now?" "I think she hates me." Elise nodded. "That's probably a good thing." For the first time in a long while, I felt light. But of course, Nadia wasn't done. The final blow came wrapped in white lace and mailed to my apartment. A wedding invitation. Heron to the guy from her healing photo. The audacity was surgical. She'd planned the whole thing to look spontaneous, as if she'd moved on, as if she'd won. But tucked inside was a handwritten note. "If you change your mind, you know where to find me. Nothing real ever ends." I smiled, because that was the moment I realized she was terrified. Terrified that I'd actually moved on, that she no longer lived rent-free in my mind, that her games, her manipulation, her grasp on my identity were over. I tossed the invitation into the trash, but I kept the note, not as a keepsake, as evidence, a final artifact of the war I survived. That night I messaged Elise, "Let's go away for a weekend, somewhere with no reception, just clean air and freedom." She replied in seconds, "I thought you'd never ask." And as I packed, I caught my reflection in the mirror, shoulders no longer slouched, eyes clear, jaw set. I wasn't the man who walked into Elise's bed numb and confused. I was the man who walked out of Nadia's maze. And this time I wasn't looking back. I didn't plan to see her again, not physically, not face to face. In my mind, Nadia was already gone, just a bad dream with sharp edges and smeared lipstick. But then I got the call. Private number. A familiar tremble in the silence before the voice. "Hey," she said, soft, breathless. "I'm in the hospital." Pause, and I said nothing. She took that as permission to continue. "I collapsed at a cafe. Panic attack," they said. "I thought I was dying, and I just wanted to hear your voice." It was a test. Her final card. The emergency. The emotional Trojan horse meant to bulldoze the walls I'd rebuilt. I didn't take the bait. "You should call your fiancé," I said flatly. Silence then. "He left." Of course he did. "He found my journals, the one with your name, everywhere." Her voice broke, but there was a practiced cadence to it, an actress testing for empathy, not connection. "I'm all alone, Noah." I could feel the weight of that line, the way it used to work on me, the trap door it once opened. But now it was just a sentence. "I'm sorry, Nadia," I said, "but I can't be your shelter anymore." She sucked in a sharp breath. You think you're above me now? Because you have a lease? Because you grew a spine? Then lower, darker. She's just a rebound. A phase. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice level. I didn't outgrow you because of her. I outgrew you because I finally saw you. Her silence told me I'd hit home. That was when I realized this wasn't just a call for closure. It was a final power play. So I gave her what she feared most: kindness without attachment. Take care of yourself, Nadia. I hope someday you find peace. But I'm done being your mirror. Then I hung up. I expected to feel triumphant, but what I felt was clean, quiet, the kind of stillness you don't recognize until you've lived without it. But the story wasn't over. A week later, Elise forwarded me an anonymous email sent to her work account. The subject line: "You don't know who he really is." It was a PDF, dozens of screenshots, out-of-context text from years ago, exaggerated journal entries, photos that looked damning when cropped and stripped of timestamp, all curated to destroy me. Elise didn't say anything, just stared at me across the table, waiting. My heart pounded, not from guilt, but from a cold, familiar fear. The same feeling I used to get every time Nadia weaponized my past. I can explain, I began, even though I didn't owe her an explanation. She held up her hand. I know who wrote this, she said, and I know you. Then she opened her laptop, tapped a few keys. A screen full of metadata popped up. She sent it from a burner email routed through a Canadian VPN. But she messed up. Look. She pointed to a line of code. The image source still traces back to her iCloud. She didn't scrub it completely. I blinked. How the hell do you know all this? Elise smiled. You forget, I work in digital forensics. I let out a breathless laugh. You could have told me. You never asked. There was something in her smile. Amused, sharp, dangerous. But not cruel. Strategic. And suddenly I saw the chessboard for what it was. I wasn't the pawn anymore. We drafted a statement, a neutral, fact-driven explanation attached with evidence of harassment and manipulation. Elise embedded the file into a blockchain record for authenticity and sent it to both HR and a few key colleagues who'd pulled away. Then she did something brilliant. She posted a message on her private account, not naming Nadia, not dramatic, just a quiet, measured post. There's always more to the story than screenshots. Ask yourself who benefits from your outrage. It exploded. People started re-examining Nadia's narrative, her sudden engagement, the timeline of her posts, the voicemail leaks. All of it looked different now, under a sharper light. Nadia tried to respond. I tried to pivot, but the magic was gone. Her story stopped getting sympathy. Her followers dropped. The puppet master had lost her strings. And for the first time, I saw the irony. She had sent me to another woman's bed to punish me. But in doing so, she gave me something she never meant to: freedom, and someone who saw me not as a project, but as a person. One night, months later, Elise and I sat on the balcony of a cabin in Vermont. Crisp wind. Stars like glass shards above us. She poured wine. I lit a fire. She said, "You know, I almost didn't sleep with you that night." Why not? Because I saw how broken you were, and I didn't want to be a rebound. I turned toward her, brow raised. So what changed? She smiled softly. You looked at me like I was the first real thing you'd seen in years. I took her hand. You were. The fire cracked, sending sparks into the sky. And somewhere in the distance, I imagined Nadia still watching, still waiting for the twist. But this wasn't her story anymore. It was mine. And I'd already rewritten the ending. The first time I saw Nadia after everything burned down was by accident. A conference. Public. Neutral territory. Elise was speaking on a panel about digital security in the post-truth era. I was just attending. I didn't even know Nadia would be there until I felt that familiar chill, like stepping into a memory I'd spent a year burying. She looked older, not in the way time ages us, but in the way truth eventually strips away illusion. Her makeup was heavier, like war paint. Her posture is still proud, but off balance, like someone standing on one foot too long and pretending it's comfortable. I saw her before she saw me. I could have walked away, but I didn't. Not because I needed closure. I'd found that already. I stayed because I wanted to witness the moment she realized she no longer lived rent-free in my mind. She turned. Her eyes caught mine. And just like that, the storm behind them flickered. She smiled, a soft, bitter echo of the woman who used to weaponize affection like a blade. I gave her nothing back, and that silence, measured, intentional, complete, was the final nail in the coffin of our story. Months passed. Elise and I didn't fall into each other. We grew toward each other. There were days we didn't talk about Nadia at all, and days when I woke up disoriented, heart pounding, dreams dragging me backward into old patterns. But Elise didn't try to fix that. She just held space for it. She knew healing wasn't linear. She also knew love wasn't a rescue mission. It was a mirror you had to face willingly. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I kept giving my power away, why I'd once believed pain was a fair price for intimacy. Turns out I wasn't addicted to Nadia. I was addicted to being needed, and she was a master at needing in ways that made me feel essential, even as she hollowed me out. But Elise didn't need me like that. She challenged me, questioned me, respected me. Some days that felt harder than toxic love, because healthy love demands that you show up fully, not as a savior, but as yourself. One night, Elise turned to me after dinner, eyes flickering over candlelight. "Do you ever miss her?" she asked, not accusing, curious. I thought for a moment. "I miss who I was trying to be for her," I said. "But I don't miss how small I had to make myself to fit into her story." She nodded, satisfied with the honesty, not threatened by it. That's when I knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about rebirth. Later that fall, I published an essay, anonymized but unmistakably mine. Title: The Beautiful Trap, Loving Someone Who Turns Your Self-Worth into Currency. It went viral. Emails poured in. Messages from men and women who said, "This is where I live too. You gave language to something I couldn't explain." I thought I was crazy until I read this. For the first time, I felt what real purpose felt like. Not performance, not penance, just truth in motion. I started a podcast with Elise. It wasn't about scandal. It was about emotional literacy, about deconstructing the myths of modern love, about how to recognize manipulation, not just in others, but in ourselves. We called it Rewire, and people listened, because underneath all the drama, all the chaos, there were millions of people just like me, recovering romantics, former fixers, empaths turned architects of their own boundaries. Then one afternoon, I got a letter. Real paper, no return address. Inside, a single line in Nadia's handwriting. "I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to love without breaking things." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was tempted, not because it hurt, but because I finally saw it for what it was. A confession, not a request. I folded it, placed it in an envelope, and dropped it in the back of my desk. Not as a memento, as a fossil, a relic of a self I no longer needed. A year to the day from when she sent me to that hotel room, Elise and I were on a mountaintop in Iceland, wind tearing at our jackets, the northern lights curling above us like ghosts. She looked at me, breath visible in the cold. "You ever wonder what would have happened if she hadn't pushed you away?" I smiled. "I'd still be trying to earn love that wasn't real." She reached into her coat pocket and handed me a note. It was a copy of the very first thing I'd ever said to her, written down in her handwriting. "You don't look like a mistake." And beneath it, in her scrawl, "Neither do you." I kissed her. Not because she saved me, because she met me where I finally stood on my own. There's a strange peace that comes when the storm no longer defines your landscape. I don't hate Nadia. I don't even resent her. I see her for who she was. And more importantly, for who I was when I needed someone like her to feel like I mattered. But I don't need chaos anymore to feel alive. I just need the truth. And the quiet, astonishing joy of being chosen, not for what I could fix or prove, but simply because I showed up, honest and whole. So if you're reading this and you're still in the storm, know this. You are not crazy. You are not weak. And walking away is not defeat. It's the beginning of the only love story that ever really matters. The one where you finally choose yourself. For support, do like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.